Welcome back to the Next Millionaire, the channel where we break down the minds behind the world's greatest fortunes. In the long history of modern finance, fortunes have been built on speed, on split-second trades, complex algorithms, and the relentless pursuit of the next opportunity. And then there is Warren Buffett. For over 7 decades, Buffett built his career through Berkshire Hathaway, a company he transformed from a struggling textile manufacturer into one of the world's largest conglomerates. His method was never secrecy or speed. It was patience. Today, on The Next Millionaire, we examine the principles behind that approach. The philosophy that turned a single name into shorthand for disciplined, long-term investing. Buffett's investment philosophy did not begin with him. It began with a teacher. Buffett studied under the legendary value investor Benjamin Graham at Columbia Business School, absorbing an idea that would define his career. A stock is not a ticker symbol or a number flashing on a screen. It is a fractional ownership stake in a real business, with real assets, real earnings, and real long-term prospects. This is the foundation of value investing, the discipline of determining what a company is actually worth, independent of what the market currently says it's worth, and acting only when there is a meaningful gap between the two. Where others see volatility, Buffett has long taught investors to see opportunity. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. The second pillar of Buffett's approach is a deceptively simple shift in perspective. Invest in businesses, not in stocks. Buffett has consistently looked for companies with what he calls a durable competitive advantage, a moat, a brand so trusted, a cost structure so efficient, or a market position so entrenched that competitors struggle to erode it. This explains decades of concentrated bets on companies with simple, understandable business models rather than speculative or fashionable trends. The question Buffett asks is rarely, "What will this stock do next month?" It is, "Would I want to own this entire business for the next 20 years?" Perhaps no principle is more associated with Buffett than time horizon. While markets reward those who move quickly, Buffett built his reputation on the opposite instinct, holding, waiting, and resisting the urge to act simply for the sake of action. This patience compounded. From 1970 until his retirement, Buffett served as chairman and largest shareholder of Berkshire Hathaway, guiding it into one of America's foremost holding companies and one of the world's leading corporate conglomerates. The lesson embedded in that trajectory is not about any single trade. It is about what sustained discipline, applied over decades, can produce. And it's exactly the kind of long game we celebrate here on The Next Millionaire. Buffett has often argued that successful investing requires less raw intelligence than people assume, and far more emotional control. Fear and greed, he has suggested, are the two forces that destroy more portfolios than bad analysis ever could. This is why his philosophy places such weight on independent thinking. The willingness to act counter to prevailing sentiment, to remain calm during downturns, and to avoid being swept up in speculative enthusiasm. It is not a strategy that requires complex mathematics. It requires the discipline to stay rational when others are not. That discipline carried Buffett to the very end of his tenure. Buffett retired as Berkshire Hathaway's CEO at the end of 2025, succeeded by Greg Abel, closing a chapter that had spanned 6 decades at the company's helm. Even in retirement, Buffett has continued coming into Berkshire's headquarters several times a week, a quiet signal that the principles he built his career on were never about a title. They were about a way of thinking. That philosophy extends beyond the balance sheet. Buffett has pledged to donate almost all of his wealth to charitable causes, framing his fortune not as a personal endpoint, but as a long-term asset to be deployed, patiently, deliberately, for purposes beyond himself. What Buffett's career ultimately demonstrates is not a trading technique. It is a temperament, value over noise, businesses over tickers, patience over urgency, rationality over emotion. In an industry that often rewards speed, Warren Buffett built one of history's great fortunes by doing, deliberately, the opposite, and in doing so, redefined what investment wisdom could look like. Thanks for watching this episode of The Next Millionaire. If these principles resonated with you, subscribe, because every great fortune starts with understanding the first one.